close this, go back to public view. So you see, you can see how I'm clicking. So when you hit this visit site right up here is what the public sees. So when you're in the editing mode, and you just kind of have to remember this about all online editing, there is a window that is your editing window, and then there is the public view. You always have to find that public view. So right now, here we are. I'll get rid of hyperrealism. And when you scroll down, what I didn't do is I didn't scroll down all the way down here. So this is a little bit about what we're going to do. So this format right here is pretty much the same for every assignment, and there's 4 assignments. So you basically have, you could create digital imaging if you want. You don't have to. And then you could have these things drop down from it like I explained to you, but that's not important, the digital imaging right now. Maybe we'll put our case study there, which is our final exam. So basically you have concept. And so on Thursday, we're going to talk about the assignment. You're going to present your concept. And whenever you present anything, you always have at least 3 images. And so the images will represent how we can visually understand your concept. So that is why PowerPoint became such an important program, is because it gave you visuals and a voiceover and somebody talking, and everybody stayed engaged. So you can imagine how important imaging is when you're having storytelling, and that's why movies are so popular. It's because you have an image and you have an audio experience about what you're looking at. So you're going to present your hyperrealism concept. I'm going to walk you through this video session about it. And then when you start working, you're going to put up 3 examples of your progress. So the first one's not going to look so good. The second one's going to be an improvement. The third one's going to be pretty close to being done. And this is where we critique and look at your progress. And then you have a page, which is just the final page, your final edit. You're all done. We're moving on. We do overlap a little bit because I do let you keep tweaking. I really make comments so that your end result is very professional. We don't want non-professional work. We want very important professional work. It's an example of just your caliber of how important something is when it's a deliverable. And then you're actually going to, on your final page, you're actually going to look at your classmates' final pictures, and then you're going to link us to theirs. And you're going to comment and talk about why you think it's successful as a hyperrealism depiction. So that's an important skill as a supervisor, as a manager, to communicate the pros and cons. And so that's one opportunity to be able to do that. So I want to show you, we're going to talk about the assignment now, and that will help you to understand. So basically, what you see here, and let me see if this comes in better. So I will show you, probably not today when we get into things, but I will show you what his progress looked like. It was pretty bad. And he was a visual arts student, and he wasn't happy. It was his first digital experience, and he was like confirming how much he hated digital tools because he loved the traditional tools. And I told him, I said, this is nothing different than traditional tools. You don't know the tools to get your results. So I helped him with the tools to get the result that he was thoroughly happy with. So this is his friend. She's a dancer. He took a bunch of photographs. He found a good source of a candle, and then he merged her image, which was shot in a basement, merged her image to become a flame. Now, I'm looking at this because I'm very time-based. I'm like, oh, I would love to see a video of this, right? Of this particular dance. So what he could do is in Photoshop, he could apply to a video. You can import video into Photoshop. So these are student examples. So hyperrealism, I'm going to show you, after I show you a couple of these student ones, I'm going to show you professional hyperrealist artist. And this will help to inspire and help you to understand the conceptual component. So if this person was presenting this concept, right, a cat drinking from a water with a reflection of his ancestry of a tiger. So here are what the assets of pictures would be. Number one, they would have a sky. Number two, they would have a cat. Number three, they would have rocks. Number four, they would have moss. Number five, they would have plants. Number three, they would have a ripple in a pond. And number seven, I don't know what number I'm on, would be a tiger. That is what they needed to merge and blend all of these images into the composite. So that's what you're going to be doing this week. You're going to be developing your ideas. I'm only asking you to show me 3 pictures, but you more than likely could find 10. It depends on the concept. On this one, this was a little bit more of a poster kind of thing, but it's talking about, merging images into the context so that the concept is realized. So what were the images? Type, bulbs, broken and unbroken, smoke, a wall, cement wall, glasses, 2 portraits, ocean, and then this was created by freehand here. This was another hyperrealism. He loves rock and roll. He took a robot that was not in this position, moved the arms around, rotated the arms so that it looked like it was holding the guitar, did the background, got the guitar to be in between the hands, right? So right here, he had to just copy and paste the finger on top of that layer, which is the guitar. Again, this is pretty obvious. 2 kinds of sky, a night sky, day sky, fire, a wave, a dancer, a tree, bark. This I think they found, and then a field, and then that was merged. And so that's just I've got hundreds of examples, as you can see from my students. I think I've been doing this since 2014, since I've been on WordPress. And so I've been archiving all of it. But now let's take a look at a professional hyperrealist. So that one is, let's see here, is this one. So Eric Johansson, I was so happy to find him in my midst of finding hyperrealists, but he was just a quintessential artist. And so I really only use him because it explains everything. So I just want to show you a couple of things. Let me see if I can go, yeah. So let me just talk through this. And then I'm going to show you a brief video. And so we're going to take up our session just talking about hyperrealism. So what I'd like you to do in between our next session is to think about some ideas. And number one, you do need to email me your WordPress blog, your URL link. And that will give me the ability to access, to see your progress and to see the assignments. So I literally grade from looking at your blog and looking at the work that's done, right? So that makes it easy. There's no confusion. The work is done and the work is explained. So that is how, so by the end of this day, you want to send me your URL blog of your WordPress, just an email. But let's look at Eric's work. I have a student found for me, I was so thrilled, a YouTube video, and it's very short, and it just really explains the whole concept of hyperrealism. So we're just going to go through, this is I love to go to his site because he always posts brand new work, so I've never seen this. And so that's why, you know, his website is very much current. And the video talks about how he works in composites. So now as a photographer, these are all his pictures. For us, we have to go to Google, we have to go to public domain and things of that sort to be able to get what we want. But he's visualizing what is in his imagination. And so this is what we call hyperrealism. Photorealism, that terminology came from painters painting so realistic that it looked like a photograph, and it was reality. This is not reality, but it looks like reality. So what we learn in this assignment is how important it is to blend and merge so you cannot tell that you composited an image. Very, very important tools. Because if I got very close up into here, I would not see the edge. It would be just as if he was a photograph. So now you can just look at the composite. He probably has a very good night sky. He probably has a very good night photograph of woods at night where he lives in Sweden. So it probably, I'm sure, is some of the landscapes in Sweden. He probably has some really good photographs of lights on the ground with glass. And he basically repeated and scaled and created a pattern so he could do multiple 100 lights at a time. And he probably has a telescope, and this might be himself or it might be one of his subject studies. So you can easily see what he has composited in, and the fun thing about hyperrealism, it can be comical. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be very humorous, or it could be very dramatic. It really is, you know, in the context of things, it's really up to you. And that's in your court to choose what you would like. But you sort of get the idea of what the hyperrealism is. It is clearly reconstruction and photo retouching skills. And that is the bottom line where you can actually get a very good, well-paid hourly job just doing Photoshop work. A lot of businesses freelance the work out because they may have multiple pictures and they need a lot of pictures for the web and whatever it may be. So now let's take a look. And so this site, I will give you this site link on the video description of this tutorial. So I'm going to be putting a lot of links on that video description so that you can go back to the source of these images. So now let's take a look at the YouTube video.
Capturing an idea than about capturing a moment, really. But
we'll start from the beginning.
So I'm here to share my photography. Or is it photography? Because of course, this is a photograph that you can take with your camera. Yet my interest in photography started as I got my first digital camera at the age of 15. It mixed with my earlier passion for drawing, but it was a bit different. Because using the camera, the process was in the planning instead. And when you take a photograph with a camera, it's just, the process ends when you press the trigger. So to me, it felt like photography was more about being at the right place at the right time. I felt like anyone could do that. So I wanted to create something different, something where the process starts when you press the trigger. Photos like this, construction going on along a busy road, but it has an unexpected twist. And despite that, it retains a level of realism. Or photos like these, both dark and colorful, but all with a common goal of retaining the level of realism. When I say realism, I mean photorealism, because of course, it's not something you can capture really, but I always wanted to look like it could have been captured somehow as a photograph. Photos where you will need a brief moment to think, to figure out the trick. So it's more about capturing an idea than about capturing a moment, really. But what's the trick that makes it look realistic? Is it something about the details or the colors? Is it something about the light? What creates the illusion? Sometimes the perspective is the illusion. But in the end, it comes down to how we interpret the world and how it can be realized on a two-dimensional surface. It's not really what is realistic, it's how what we think looks realistic, really. So I think the basics are quite simple. I just see it as a puzzle of reality, where you just can take different pieces of reality and put it together to create an alternate reality. And let me show you a simple example. Here we have three perfectly imaginable physical objects, something we all can relate to living in a three-dimensional world. But combined in a certain way, they can create something that still looks three-dimensional, like it could exist. But at the same time, we know it can't. So we trick our brains because our brain simply doesn't accept the fact that it doesn't really make sense. And I see the same process with combining photographs. It's just really about combining different realities. So the things that make a photograph look realistic, I think it's the things that we don't even think about, the things all around us in our daily lives. But when combining photographs, this is really important to consider, because otherwise it just looks wrong somehow. So I would like to say that there are three simple rules to follow to achieve a realistic result. As you can see, these images aren't really special, but combined they can create something like this. So the first rule is that photos combined should have the same perspective. Secondly, photos combined should have the same type of light. And these two images both fulfill these two requirements, shot at the same height and in the same type of light. The third one is about making it impossible to distinguish where the different images begin and end, by making it seamless. Make it impossible to say how the image actually was composed. So by matching color, contrast, and brightness in the borders between the different images, adding photographic defects like depth of field, desaturated colors, and noise, erase the borders between the different images and make it look like one single image, despite the fact that one image can contain hundreds of layers, basically. So here's another example. One might think that this is just an image of a landscape and the lower part is what's manipulated. But this image is actually entirely composed of photographs from different locations. I personally think that it's easier to actually create a place than to find a place, because then you don't need to compromise with the ideas in your head. But it does require a lot of planning. And getting this idea during winter, I knew that I had several months to plan it, to find the different locations for the pieces for the puzzle, basically. So, for example, the fish is captured on a fishing trip. The shores are from a different location. The underwater part is captured in a stone pit. And yeah, I even turned the house on top of the island red to make it look more Swedish. So to achieve a realistic result, I think it comes down to planning. It always starts with a sketch, an idea. Then it's about combining the different photographs. And here, every piece is very well planned. And if you do a good job capturing the photos, the result can be quite beautiful and also quite realistic. So all the tools are out there. And the only thing that limits us is our imagination.
So that was, you know, he explained everything that much better than if I explained it. So this is where it becomes important to realize that the tools that we're going to be learning is how to make that composite look as if somebody did take a picture of that. So I just want to go away from this and go back to the concept aspect. So I'm going to stop sharing and just take some questions. And I see some questions are in the chat room right now. Yes, you can contact me for emails. And what kind of account do we make on WordPress? You want to create a blog that is your blog. It should be your name or some title that you want to give it. And again, on that playlist I sent you, the video tutorials will be there. So any questions on the actual hyperrealism assignment? Things that you can think of. Unmute yourself just to ask any question.
If an image is the same height and level, but not the same light, but not the same lighting, we can always like change the lighting. Like
Absolutely. Yeah. Now he has an advantage because he's a photographer. We do not have the time and space to be able to do that. So you want to search for your images on Google and on these public domain sites.
Gotcha.
After we get some of these questions, I'm going to go back to show you where you can get your images and also how to be sure you get the good resolution from Google or from the public domain.
Could we use some images that we already have? Like,
absolutely. If you have your own photographs, you absolutely can.
all right.
So there's no hard and fast rules. The important thing is the deliverable. So the thing that happens with people doing this assignment, this is where you learn about Photoshop, and when you're making composites, it's called resolution. And we're going to talk about that in the session when we come back. We're going to kind of peruse through some of the tools and so forth. And I'm going to show you how a bad composite is when, Zoom is reminding me to upgrade, but 40 minutes I think is good enough time for us to chat and then get back to work. So what happens with beginners on this assignment and when people are not familiar with the world of digital imaging is you have two resolutions, one poor quality, one high resolution. When you put them together, you can see that difference. So you have to be very careful to looking at things. And sometimes when you're zoomed out, everything looks great. And then all of a sudden you zoom in, you go, ee, this is still in good resolution, and this just totally pixelated. Now the web, I love the web. The web is much more forgiving in poor images than print is. Print is a beast. It's a lot of work. The files are huge, gigabytes. It takes a lot of processing and memory because you need that high resolution. And we'll talk all about image formats and resolutions and all that technical part. I just want to focus on the assignment now and then show you where you can get your resources. So that's why you want to be careful about when you make your selection and your concept. It's very good to develop your ideas and then go look to see if you can find the images that you so want. So if I wanted a zebra, a three-headed zebra, say that's my hyperrealism concept of some sort, as a zoo that everything's three-headed, I would need to be sure that I could find 3 zebra heads that have good quality resolution. And then I'd feel confident, okay, I can do this. But that's important to be, as you're developing your ideas, and actually now you know why people hire photographers is because an art direction will say, we need this. Well, we can't find it on Getty Images, we can't find it on Flickr, we have to hire a photographer to go shoot those images. Maybe we have to hire them and fly them to a destination. It becomes a whole big production context. That is why Getty Images are so expensive. It's cheaper to buy a Getty image than it is to hire a photographer to go shoot a new photography shot. But that does happen a lot in fashion design and in architecture and so forth. And that's why a lot of photographers' work is on Getty Images, so they can sell their body of work. So any other questions on the assignment? So I'm going to walk it through a little bit to show you a student's example of doing a concept and presenting. So let me share my screen. And if you are having trouble with audio, sometimes it does tend to go in and out. The video tutorial does have good sound. You don't lose the sound on the video tutorial. So let me show you Kathleen's again. So this was her, so in other words, here's her digital imaging. Here is her hyperrealism. These are the pages that she made. We're only doing progress and final. And here were her concepts. And so we're only looking at for 3 concepts. So this is one example of a concept. And this is here. So here's her statement. What would the Hudson look like if I recreated a Willy Wonka? Lately, my son's favorite movie is Willy Wonka. So the idea is to apply it to a place that's familiar to home. So this was one of her sources. And these were all her assets that she used to make the composite, right? So we got her head around the concept right away. She gave a brief description about what the concept is. Then she gave us pictures so that we could imagine what she was talking about. So this is actually what she did as a final. And here is her pictures. So you can see this is, you know, she didn't highlight. Notice the brightness. So she improved upon the brightness of the page in comparison to the other one. And that is her hyperrealism. So that's what we're looking for. And I think looking at what she has here, you see what happens between the two of them? That is because this one, she shifted the levels. And that's a tool that you always do at the very end. And what it does is it punches the contrast. See on here, it's very muted, very muddy. And so when she punched the contrast, that made the improvement. And these are just things that you come to learn when you're in the Photoshop tool to be able to improve. So on her progress, these are when we're talking about, like for instance, when she showed this, I said, Kathleen, it's coming along well, but there's something really wrong happening. And she said, what are you talking about? And she could not see it. And what it was is that the flow of the liquid was going horizontal and not down the other way. So you see, she still had it here, still had it here, still there. And now this is where she started. You can see the progress. I'm only looking for 3, guys. This is a full semester body of work. So let me go back to after I commented. And there she fixed it. And so then she was able to warp the water to go in the flow of things. So that's why critiques are very important, because sometimes you just don't see the problem because you're so enmeshed in other things. And so the whole context of fixing something is really when you really fully understand your tool on that. So I have 2 minutes left. I'm going to unshare, but let's go back to my page first so that you can see what I couldn't see before, which is if you scroll down, this is what we're talking about. So Thursday, your homework assignment outside of our Zoom session is, and this time you can actually look for some of the images. And for example, on here, on one of the video tutorials on that playlist I gave you, on the YouTube playlist, there is content about public domain images. Let me get that up for you right here. So this is a link that has all ways to get your images. So searching for images, They have Creative Commons, Google Images, and so forth. So when you go to Google Images, you can do an advanced search to find a particular topic, but I usually just come up here. So if I wanted Statue of Liberty, which is what I did before, I'm just showing this to you. We have 1 minute left. So what I'd like you to do if we get cut off is to think about the ideas of hyperrealism. Go visit Eric's website, Eric Johansson. That is him right here, Eric Johansson. And I will put that link up in WordPress right when we get off on the session and refresh the screen for you. So it's less than a minute, but if I was in Google, when you say images, you go to tools right here on tools, and you go to size, and you want large. And then this will give you your image, and that's when you right click and you can save your image. We'll come back and show you how to give credit if you're not using copyrightable material and so forth. And so that's why this site here